research. Yeah. If you're making something that's not expensive, you can just go with your instincts and just do it. But when you're spending, tens of millions on a game to develop it, the people who are investing want to see some de-risking happening.
So maverick and money are two separate things.
Yeah, if you yourself have all the money to do that, you can go ahead and just don't care. I'm just going to make whatever I want because the last thing I made worked out well, and if your instincts on that worked out well, then you would trust it again. But a lot of times when games are started, they're not started just with one person, with all the money. It's like usually a round of investors, or it's a publisher that has a lot of other people in charge of this thing. And the bigger the budget, the more de-risking that they want to do.
Okay. That's completely fair.
Yeah.
Hello, John. Just a question. I've been playing games for 31 years, so all the old games you mentioned, I played most of them. I was curious if how is the process if I could work in the game industry? I'm curious about that.
Let's see. If you want to get a job in the industry, the best thing that you can do is show games that you've made. And the best way to make games is to start tonight. You don't need permission to get into the game industry, and you don't need permission to actually learn anything. You can just do it on your own. If you want to learn how to code, or you want to learn how to do level design or 3D modeling, the internet has all of the answers for all of that, every discipline. And it just takes time and focus to just get in on a computer, sit there, turn off all social media, and just focus on learning and making something. And when you get to the point where, like if you are a character artist and you just want to make a really cool 3D model, you don't know how to animate, but you know how to sculpt something, you can find, you can have, let's say, Unreal auto-rig your model, and you can connect just animations that are already sitting out there, like from Paragon or some other game. You can just take those animations and put them on your rig, and now you have a character that you modeled that's moving around, and it's easy enough to go into Unreal 5 and just drop your model in there and watch it run around. And that right there, if you just clean it up a little bit, you can make that be a little game that shows off that you know how to use Unreal, you know how to rig, you know how to pull in animations, but and you can show off your sculpting. And that's the way that someone who is not a programmer can put together a demo to show any prospective game company that they are excited, like they will go with the extra effort to learn this stuff to show off what they can do. And that's the kind of people that game companies want to see. They want to see people who go out and work hard to try to get in the industry. And the best way is just show off as many things that you're going to create as possible. Whether it's levels, make them in Unreal 5, make models, do animations. You can take models that are already out there and put your own animations on them and show that you know how to animate. You can do all that stuff without having to code. And if you want to be a programmer in the industry, then use Unreal and start writing some code, do some blueprints and convert them to C++, and then show off that you know how to do that. So every way that you want to get in the industry, there's a way to do that and still show it off. But you got to show it off because a CV is just a bunch of words. They're good words if they're the right words, but they're not going to be the thing that gets you hired. They need to see what you've done to actually get hired versus just a bunch of words on a CV. So you got to do stuff.
Hello, John.
Hello.
I've always loved Quake 1 and the graphics of the game, and I was wondering what was the most difficult technical situation during the development of Quake 1?
I love Quake 1 as well. The thing with Quake 1 that took it, the hardest part of that game was writing that engine. That engine took an entire year to write before we could make the game, which we spent 7 months on. So that year was very difficult. There were 3 people working on it. The game engine had to be architected from day one as a multiplayer game with a client-server architecture, which no one had done at the time. So that was already a fun time figuring that out. But then, because GPUs did not exist back then, right? This is pre-graphics card, GPUs. We had to put every pixel on the screen ourselves as fast as possible to render what's called a perspective correct texture for the walls. So when you're looking any direction, even tilted, that those walls have to be perfect and they can't have texture swim or weird calculations that don't line up. So it's called perspective correct texturing. And Michael Abrash had to write all that code, and that was really complex code to get at a really fast rate. He had to use the floating point. This is all in assembly language, by the way, and he had to use the floating point processor and the CPU to weave those together into the most optimal code path to render just a single strip of pixels on the screen, and then basically replicate that for the whole screen. So that was a very hard engine to write, not just because of the rendering needing to be fast and completely correct, but also behind the rendering, the data structures that make up the world and the shadows that we were putting in there, and to do it fast by using a special caching system, which is a surface refresh cache, surface cache refresh. All of that stuff just made it very complex, and that's why it took a whole year, coupled with all the networking. So yeah, it was, I'd say, just the engine itself was probably the hardest part of it, and that's broken up into several categories, but the rendering and the architecture was probably the toughest part of it.
And I was wondering, what's your favorite shotgun in any FPS game ever?
Probably Doom 2's shotgun. Yeah.
The super shotgun, I hope.
Yeah, that's the super shotgun. Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Doom 2 super shotgun.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Talking about the rendering speed and the data flow, you must have been a big fan of the demo scene back in the day.
Yeah, well, the demo scene was
because they were always chasing exactly those things.
Yeah, but the thing about the demo scene is that every CPU cycle they spent was just to render that scene on the screen in the smallest amount of space possible, usually. And with a game, there's AI, there's sound, there's all these other things. There's player logic. Input and AI responding to it. So it's way more work to make a game fast. Okay.
So a demo was just the cream filling on top of the whole.
Yeah, it looks cool. I mean, it's already a technical achievement what they're doing with the demo scene code. That's already super impressive, but a game is a different animal.
Okay. I'm sorry, only because we were talking about Quake 1, I want to squeeze in one of our online questions here. Quake 1 levels have a lot of Lovecraftian designs incorporated in them. Was someone in the team passionate about Lovecraft? Was it a coincidence, or was this a direction that was chosen by everyone when you were working on the design?
Yeah, so definitely chose to add some Lovecraft influences. We didn't want the game to be a Lovecraft game, but we wanted Lovecraftian influences in the game to make it feel like it was violent and unsettling. Like that was the theme of the game, was like everything we put in needs to reinforce that feeling. And having weird monsters in there, like the Vor and the Scrags and the boss at the end, Cathan, a lot of that stuff, people are like, that's from Lovecraft. And, there are only a few. There's the dimensional shambler, we just call the shambler. So we did that on purpose. That was absolutely Sandy Peterson's influence, because he made Call of Cthulhu. He worked at Chaosium, so he's definitely a huge Lovecraft lover, and I didn't know about Lovecraft until we hired him, and then he got me excited about Lovecraft because I started reading a ton of it and couldn't believe that it wasn't like the biggest thing ever. So I'm like, we're putting this in Quake. Nice. So we had a lot of that influence in Quake. That is absolutely on purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, John.
Hello.
So before I ask my question, I want to say that you're one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to game design, and
Thanks.
I really respect you a lot. So my
you.
question is, what is the funniest or the most creative thing you've seen Doom be run on?
Well, pregnancy test is pretty funny. I think one of the funniest ones. Some people might not. Some people might go, "Why is that funny?" But somebody a security person, like a hacker, basically wanted to prove that the way that a certain printer was handling Wi-Fi was super insecure. So he basically made a version of Doom that would run on a printer, and what it did was when it hacked the printer, it erased everything on the printer and wrote Doom in it, and that's all that printer could do from then on, was just run Doom. It couldn't print anymore.
Wow.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah. My second question is, if the new developers of Doom would ask you to be in the new Doom game as maybe another icon of sin, head on a stick thing, would you be down to do it?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We all know not to ask him about the movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, John.
Hi.
I have a question regarding your past in Facebook games, mobile games. What is your thought about the current industry?
What do I think about the state of the mobile game industry?
Yeah.
Geez, I have not paid that much attention since moving out of that space. But, I'm an Apple iPhone fanatic, so I am in the App Store. I see recommended games, and install and play a bunch of different things. And it's what I like is that mobile games are really super wide. They're not all copies of Clash of Clans anymore. They're like, there's adventure games, there's really great narrative games, there's lots of really well done 3D stuff. There's been some really innovative games that use 3D, but like say Hitman Sniper, if you know the Hitman games, Hitman Sniper lets you take like one vantage position. You start the game and you can't move, but what you can do is you can zoom in on the distance in 3D and take out all these targets, and it works really, really well. So there's been a lot of work on UI with mobile and with AR, expanding choices for kinds of games that people can play. I think mobile is really, really great. It's not like, oh, I don't want to install the next thing that's just a copy of something else. It's so wide now that there's a lot of competition in every genre, and there's been some new genres invented. So I like mobile games.
And another question, actually, regarding, since you mentioned the AR, what
Yeah.
about the VR industry, I suppose?
What part of AR? What was it?
VR, like virtual reality.
Did you say VR?
Yeah, VR.
Oh, what part? Well, VR. There's a game that I really like in VR. It's called Demio. It's a D&D game where you don't need to move. Like, that's one of the problems with VR games, is the fact that you feel like you need to move, but you're not actually moving, and it feels weird to some people. Demio is basically you and a bunch of other people are sitting around a D&D like table, and you can zoom all the way in, and your characters are in there, and you're moving them around and basically trying to take over the whole dungeon. But it's actually pretty tough, and it was pretty cool. I was playing with 3 other people, and they were all in different countries, but it feels like they're all right there in the same room. It's pretty neat, and you can rotate the table. It's just you have tons of control, and the game itself is really fun because you're basically all just going through a dungeon, taking turns and trying to figure out what move you should make. It's a turn-based dungeon crawler. But yeah, it's really cool. So there's definitely some neat stuff happening in VR with games, but I think that VR's primary impact is probably going to be outside of games and probably in health.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey John, I would like to ask you, what influenced you to start game development?
What influenced me to start game development?
Yeah.
Arcade games. I was hooked on arcade games in the 70s and the early 80s, and I was already like making games before Pac-Man came out, but when Pac-Man came out in 1980, it basically blew my mind because it was not, I wasn't just shooting aliens, with a ship, like games up until that point, not just asteroids, but other games Space Invaders, etc. before that. But when Pac-Man came out, it was in color. The audio was completely different. It was unique, and the sound chip was brand new, and it sounded better than all the other arcade games out there. But the game design itself was, you're running away from stuff. There's no shooting. You're just eating, and it was just so abstract and interesting and fun that it kind of blew my mind. Creatively, it's like you can do anything in games. If you can make something like this fun, you could make anything fun. It's not like, okay, try to make it look realistic. It's just like make something that's interesting and cool. So really, Pac-Man is what got me very focused on game design.
And how did you learn it in that year when game development was still raw and mostly being invented?
It was, yeah. So the home computer industry, home computer game industry, well, even home computers started in 1977. 3 computers came out that were the beginning of the game industry. That was the TRS-80, the Commodore PET, and the Apple II. Those are the 3 computers that people could buy that they didn't have to put together, that they could take home and actually put stuff on. And that was the year that the game industry began on cassettes, etc. And I didn't see a computer at that time, but I did go to the local university in my town in '79, and they had a mainframe computer in a room that you could see into it. It was massive, and next to that room were 25 terminals that, this is during the summer of '79, just a few students were there doing summer work. And so it was mostly empty. And I was 11, so I'm just go in there and just jump on a terminal. And I basically started figuring out, asking some questions. They gave me a book, and I started learning how to program in BASIC on a mainframe. And I went there every day the whole summer. And when I couldn't go anymore because school started, then I would go after school to different retail shops that sold computers at the time, in the fall of '79. And so I would get on our, TRS-80s and Apple IIs and Commodore 64s and Atari 800s and basically just program whatever I could. I couldn't save anything out because I didn't have discs, but I got to learn a lot until '82 when my parents finally got a computer at home and I could actually just code forever at that point. So I just learned by myself at a university when I was 11.
Okay, thank you.
Dancing Demon.
Yeah, you remember that TRS-80?
Dancing Demon. Last year of high school, we got a computer lab. It was all TRS-80s. And that's all they did was play Dancing Demon. I don't think they ever used them for anything else.
Because of Dancing Demon, the Apple II on the master disc that everybody got, a guy named Bob Bishop wrote an Apple II kind of version of that called, I think it was called Apple Vision. And it was a guy dancing on a TV set to Turkey in the Straw.
Yep. I remember being more fascinated with how did the data get on and off the cassette tape.
Oh, yeah.
Than actually how it worked. It's just, I was meta geek. Please.
Hello. Which big gaming franchise IP you would like to work it?
Wow. Probably Ghost Recon. Love it. Minecraft. Half-Life 3.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. What are some projects that you're working on now? Can say.
We're still working on DLC for Empire of Sin. I'm working on Sigil 2. We're about to put a Dangerous Dave collector's box out in the next month or so, which has never been done, so we're really excited about that. And another big project that hopefully is going to happen soon.
Okay, cool. What video game do you play right now?
I play Ghost Recon Breakpoint for sure.
Yeah, nice. And final question, what type of TV shows or movies do you like?
I work so much that I really haven't watched TV. Like, we're so busy right now, some days it's from 9:30 to midnight.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good day.
I am so sorry. I just got our 5-minute warning, so we're gonna finish. We can take one more question here. I just want to let you know that weather permitting, acts of God permitting, John and I will be here tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. So everybody who didn't do their questions now, get to the line as soon as you can tomorrow. And since this gentleman already has the mic, let's take his questions. I have one more online question, and I think that'll be it for today.
All right.
Sure, thanks. Hey, John. Earlier you were saying you considered Half-Life 2 to be the best shooter for 15 years, and I was curious what game came in, what shooter came in after those 15 years that kind of took its place for you?
Doom 2016, I think. Yeah. Yeah, that one nailed it.
Okay, that was pretty easy. I want to ask this just in case we don't get the chance tomorrow. This question comes from, well, let's just say I know where he lives if you need it. How long did it take you to grow that lavish hair?
If I ever cut my hair, it takes 3 years to get back to normal.
I understand you did that once, actually.
Twice.
Twice?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is 3 years.
No, I haven't cut it in a long time.
Ah, okay.
Not since 2007.
Okay, I was afraid.
That was the last time.
'cause
Don't
I
be
know-
afraid.
I know. Well, I've known a couple other guys with long hair, and actually even some women that it's not that well behaved.
Oh yeah.
So
You have to cut it.
well done.
At the bottom as
keep it
much
keep
as
it keep the
possible.
flyaway away.
Yeah.
Conditioner. Okay.
It's hard with the crazy weather being so humid. Humidity is just gonna make your hair frizz all over the place.
Wow, that really does happen. Huh? Okay. All right, then. That is a perfect note to end on today, ladies and gentlemen.
Hair talk.
John Romero. We'll see you again, like I said, tomorrow at 2. If
See
we
you
can.
tomorrow.
Been a wonderful audience. Thank you.
All right, have fun.